The desert stretched endlessly, its golden sands glowing faintly under the last light of dusk. Amelia, an archaeologist with a knack for chasing legends, stood atop a dune, her breath shallow from excitement. The rumors had led her here, a city that appeared only on the night of the new moon, hidden beneath centuries of shifting sands. Her team had been skeptical, even derisive. Legends were for the gullible, they said, but Amelia believed in the power of myths, the way they preserved fragments of forgotten truths. And this legend, the city of Selunara, had called to her like no other. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, the air was cooler, and a strange stillness blanketed the desert. Amelia glanced at her watch. The new moon would rise in less than an hour. She set up camp, her small tent pitched in the shadow of the dune. Alone in the vast expanse, she felt a mix of exhilaration and unease. The desert was silent, save for the occasional whisper of wind. As the sky darkened, Amelia scanned the horizon. Nothing but sand met her gaze. She checked her notes, sketched maps, and old legends. According to the stories, Selunara would rise only when the sky was devoid of moonlight, its ancient stones glinting under the stars. And then she saw it. A faint shimmer in the distance, like heat waves rising off the sand. It grew brighter, more defined, until shapes began to emerge. Arches, towers, domes. A city, vast and intricate, materialized out of the desert like a mirage, solidifying into reality. Heart pounding, Amelia grabbed her flashlight and journal and headed toward it. The city was more magnificent than she had imagined. Its architecture was a blend of cultures, ornate spires, intricate carvings, and towering statues of gods she didn't recognize. The streets were paved with polished stones that reflected the starlight. Yet, something was off. The air within the city was colder than the desert night, and an unnatural quiet enveloped everything. No sound of wind, no rustle of sand, only silence. As she ventured deeper, Amelia noticed the statues. They were eerily lifelike, their expressions frozen in terror or agony. She stopped before one, a man clutching his throat, his eyes wide with horror. A shiver ran down her spine. The stories had mentioned the city's sudden disappearance, but not the fate of its inhabitants. She hurried through the streets, her flashlight casting long shadows on the walls. In the center of the city stood a massive temple, its doors ajar as if inviting her in. Amelia hesitated, the weight of an unseen force pressing against her chest. But curiosity drove her forward. So, the temple's interior was grand, its walls adorned with murals that seemed to shift and writhe under her gaze. At its heart was an altar, and on it lay an object wrapped in cloth. Amelia approached cautiously, unwrapping it to reveal a small obsidian artifact carved in the shape of a crescent moon. The moment she touched it, the ground trembled. A low hum filled the air, growing louder, resonating in her bones. She stumbled back, the artifact still in her hand. The statues outside began to crack, their stone faces splitting to reveal hollow, dark voids where eyes should have been. One by one, they turned their heads toward the temple. Panic surged through Amelia as the statues began to move, their stiff, jerking motions accompanied by a sound like grinding stone. She ran, clutching the artifact, her flashlight swinging wildly. The city seemed to close in around her, the once open streets now labyrinthine. The air grew colder, the silence replaced by whispers, low, guttural voices speaking a language she couldn't understand. Amelia turned a corner and froze. Standing before her was a figure cloaked in black, its face obscured by a hood. In its hands was an identical artifact, glowing faintly. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The figure raised its head, revealing nothing beneath the hood but darkness. "The Guardian," it said, its voice a hollow echo. "You have disturbed Selunara's slumber." "I didn't mean to. I was just exploring," Amelia stammered. The Guardian extended a hand. "Return the relic and leave, or face the curse of the hidden city." Amelia hesitated. The artifact was her proof, her discovery. Without it, no one would believe her. But the whispers grew louder, the shadows closing in. Reluctantly, she placed the artifact in the guardian's hand. The whispers ceased, and the city began to dissolve, its walls crumbling into sand. The guardian faded with it, its form disintegrating like smoke. Amelia ran, the shifting sands swallowing the city behind her. When she reached her tent, she collapsed, her body trembling. The city was gone, the desert empty once more. But the nightmares began that very night. In her dreams, she was back in Selenara, the statues chasing her, the whispers deafening. The guardian's voice echoed in her mind. The curse is eternal. Over the next weeks, Amelia noticed strange things. Her reflection in mirrors seemed delayed. Her shadow moved when she stood still, and she began waking up with sand in her bed. One night, as the new moon approached again, she heard it, the low hum that had filled Selenara. Her room grew colder, and the walls seemed to close in. She turned to the window and saw it, the city shimmering faintly in the distance. The curse had followed her. The next morning, Amelia was gone. Her tent and belongings were found in the desert, but no trace of her remained. And on the night of every new moon, Selenara rises again, waiting for its next visitor.